Philadelphia kaput, overdone. Plus, the Pittsburgh Steelers lost the game. They're in a world of trouble. I'll tell you why, even if Ryan Clark won't. And, of course, there is the issue of Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. A whole bunch of stuff coming up on First Take. It's Molly. It's Max. It's your boy, Stephen A. You know what I like to do. Holla at your boy.
Jalen Hurts gave him a pulse.
God
That's
bless
what gave
America.
him a pulse.
Jalen Hurts.
Wentz was told how great he was. Wentz was coming out talking about that's just the way we do things around here. You want to blame that on the coach?
We can pin it all we want on the quarterback. Have fun with that.
I am saying that you look at him and Wentz, and clearly that is not a marriage that is going to last.
You have to sit Wentz for the rest of this season to see whether Jalen Hurts can be your quarterback going forward. I don't think Carson Wentz will ever be the Carson Wentz from 2017 again, because Carson Wentz is over.
Is Jalen your starter next week? And if so, what will the challenge be, now that more tape is out on him?
I'm gonna enjoy this one. I'm gonna go home and relax and be with my family tonight and enjoy this win and get ready for the week.
The jury's out for Peterson. How about the fellas? What's going on, everybody? Welcome into First Take. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Stephen A., Dan, Max, I'm Molly. Let's get right into it. And Max, I'm going to come to you in this one. Jalen Hurts getting the first start of his career, and he gets a win against a Super Bowl favorite, the Saints, one of the best defenses in football. This certainly doesn't help Wentz. Max, do you think Hurts has officially taken Carson's job?
Yes, officially, I don't know, because they won't come out and say it, because that coach, Doug Peterson, looks scared, like he doesn't have autonomy. Guys, the Eagles have been a different football team over the last almost 6 quarters. A different football team. And it's not the first time we've seen this. Like, Nick Foles takes Carson Wentz's job because of injury. Carson Wentz was having a great year. But Nick Foles is the one that went on the Super Bowl run and won Super Bowl MVP. And then the next year, Carson Wentz was 5-6, and the Eagles were flat. They were dead in the water. They weren't going anywhere. Wentz gets hurt again. Foles takes over. They catch fire. They get to the playoffs somehow, start at 5-6. He gets them to the playoffs, beats the Bears, throws a perfect pass, goes through his receiver's hands, or else they also beat the Saints to get to the NFC Championship game in the next season. This is like, it keeps happening. By the way, last year in the playoffs, a 40-year-old Josh McCown comes in, with a torn hamstring, and they lost to Seattle by the same margin they lost with Wentz week 12 of that season, right? Like, the team does not function with Wentz, I think, because he won't run the offense. Now, before you talk to me about the offensive line, according to ESPN Analytics, the Eagles' offensive line in pass blocking win rate is 11th in the league. Run blocking, it's better, but pass blocking is 11th in the league. But it's the offensive line, right? Because look how much Carson Wentz is getting sacked. In that case, a rookie second-round pick making his first start against the NFL's best defense should have been sacked 1 million times. How many times was he sacked? 0. He was sacked 0. Now, does his mobility help him? Sure, right? Like the Sanders run set up by the fact that they're afraid he keeps the ball. Jalen Hurts keeps the ball. He freezes not only the defensive end, but the linebackers for a second. And that definitely helps things. But that doesn't explain why he doesn't get sacked at all. Randall Cunningham was sacked 60 times one season, 72 times another season. Just because you're mobile, if you're playing behind a bad offensive line, in fact, you will get sacked. That didn't happen. Maybe it's because Jalen Hurts will simply run the offense. And it's not that he looked, oh my God, amazing. It's that he wasn't making the stupid mistakes that Carson Wentz makes every single week, multiple times a game. Guys, you owe the offensive line an apology, both of you, for harping on that, because it seems to function fine without Carson Wentz. And the time to fix Wentz was months ago. It's too late. By the way, behind that same offensive line where Hurts didn't get sacked once, Carson Wentz has been the worst statistical starter in the NFL this year. The worst. No. Carson Wentz's days as the Eagles starting quarterback are over.
Well, first of all, let's not start off the show on a Monday morning saying asinine statements like we owe the offensive line an apology. We watched what we watched. We saw what we saw. We didn't completely absolve Carson Wentz from blame. But at the same time, we had to acknowledge the fact that the offensive line didn't have some great games. They played a great game yesterday. It was one of their better games. You have a guy in Jalen Hurts that scrambled out of the pocket on at least 3 occasions, ran the ball effectively in the first half, clearly was throwing the football relatively decently, and he gave them a spark. I think the profound argument to make against Carson Wentz is his unwillingness to listen because he's got an elevated level of cachet, and as a result, because of that and not listening, that may have compromised the success of the team. But there is such a word as humility. You might not know much about that, Max. I don't know. I know I might. I know I do. But I will tell you this. At the end of the day, when you look at a Carson Wentz, the question as to whether or not this is Hurts' team and his job is gone, Carson Wentz's job is gone. For this season, sure, because the season Carson Wentz has been so god-awful, he deserves to get benched for the rest of this season. But he's about 28 years of age. He's got a tremendous future ahead of him as far as I'm concerned if he could eliminate those mistakes. I'm not going to look at a guy that was a top 2 candidate for league MVP honors 3 years ago and suddenly say, you're finished, you're done because of a bad season. There are plenty of people throughout NFL history that have had bad seasons and have had the opportunity to come back, make amends, and did just that. I'm going to assume and surmise that that is Carson Wentz. We looked at him, we said he could throw the ball. We looked at him and said he could run with the football, that he could definitely inspire his teammates, et cetera, et cetera. We said those things in the past. Had I never saw those things in the past, that would be different. But because I have, I'm going to believe that it can happen again. It just doesn't need to happen this season because they don't need to be engaging in some kind of reclamation project in the heart of the season as you're trying to gear for a playoff run, trying to overcome whatever issues exist in the NFC East and end up in the playoffs yourself. It's too late for all of that. So Carson Wentz, in my opinion, should be finished for this season. In terms of moving ahead, in terms of his future being done in Philadelphia, hell no, I'm not going to say that. I need to see more from Hurts throwing the football before I make such a proclamation. I didn't see that yesterday, so I'm not going to take that position.
Yeah, I'll answer the question first. Yes, this is Jalen Hurts' job for the rest of the year. It was last week, okay? Yesterday just kind of put a stamp on that. Max, I'm a little disappointed in you, to be honest. Like, that shows, the last 5 minutes shows me that you're a better person than I am. Because if I were you, I would have buried me. You came out and were like a little bit of soft. I also think that it's important as a man to admit when you were wrong. So, Max, for the second time, I'm going to apologize to you. In this situation this year, you were right about Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts in the Eagles quarterback situation. I want to credit Jalen Hurts. He was a difference maker yesterday. He was decisive with the football. It helped their football team. He didn't hurt their football team with his use of his legs and getting outside of the pocket. That was outstanding. They asked him to be a spark. He was a consistent flame. So I want to credit Jalen Hurts for what he did yesterday. That being said, that offense was completely different, right? That was a completely different game plan, the way it was put together and then the way it was called. That football team played its best game of the year. That defense is the second worst defense in the NFL when it comes to takeaways. They get 2. They get 5 sacks, 3 and out. So that defense played a complete football game. I don't know why that happens. Like, that's where I am with Carson Wentz and this football team. Why? Why the disconnect between you and the way your team performs, specifically on the defensive side of the football? Why the disconnect between you and the way your coach calls a game? And that's where I want to take the conversation for me. I think that, like, what needs to happen with Wentz, whether it's in Philadelphia or moving forward, is you got to go back and sit down and talk with him about 2017 and what that did to him mentally. Watching someone else, your job gets ripped away from you because of injury. Someone else takes your team to the Super Bowl. 2018, your job gets ripped away from you because of injury. Someone takes your team to the playoffs. 2019, you put the team on your back and you carry them to the playoffs. Finally, you've overcome the demons of Nick Foles, and then all of a sudden the second round pick. You've got to figure out where he is here more than anywhere he is physically moving forward for Carson Wentz.
Okay, well, if you want to get buried, here comes the avalanche. Dan, he didn't do anything last year, put the team on his back.
That's
he
the
stunk
dumbest
last
comment
year.
of the day, buddy.
I tried to tell you that. He was regressing. He was regressing. Do you think he just he woke up one day and he became the worst quarterback in football? No,
Exactly.
It didn't happen overnight. And Stephen A., that's why when you say what he was 3 years ago, it took him 3 years step by step to get here. It's going to take years step by step to get back.
In that 3 year period, he throws for 81 touchdowns and 21 picks. It's never been done like that.
Okay, you keep.
But you can't just point to a single moment, Max.
Dan, you keep bringing that up. Are you denying it was step by step that he got here? You think he just fell off a cliff? Because I saw this last year. And the reason Carson Wentz, like, why does the team function better without Wentz? I never have questioned his toughness or his talent. He's extremely tough and he's talented, and I'm sure he's dedicated and wants to be great. He's arrogant and he has too much power in the organization. Think about how Trubisky acted when he was benched for Foles. Not because of injury, benched for Foles. Did he come out whining and pouting the way Carson Wentz did? No, he took it like a man. He was a good teammate and in fact showed leadership. And he's been playing well because he understood, he internalized the criticism. Wentz, nothing he does, never anything wrong with Wentz, right? All of last year, you were even still saying he put the team on his back. He was lucky last year to be playing in a putrid division.
His last
and got
6 or 7 games, he throws for 18 touchdowns and 4 picks. He didn't have a receiver over 5. Like, come you can't? So he was lucky. He lucked himself into that performance for 6 or 7 straight weeks.
Yeah, he was lucky. He has high-end talent. He's capable of making a miracle throw a game and a couple of other really good ones. He made mistake after mistake in terms of mental mistakes and execution in that whole thing. So now he's been taken care of by the media. He obviously has power on the team. He has his own coach shook, afraid to say Jalen Hurts is the starter, afraid to even really praise Jalen Hurts. It will never work in Philly, Stephen A. The power dynamic is upside down, and Wentz